Hey everybody, welcome back. So in a previous video, we talked a lot about the process of creating data stores, initializing data stores, updating them, deleting them, but we didn't really talk about how you can append or add to an existing data store. So the purpose of today's video will be to walk through the options that you have and kind of demonstrate how we can take a data store and add to it. So this video starts with basically initializing an empty data store, right? So this data store is empty. The second step is we actually write to this data store, and it's a data store that contains an array of 5 colors in this example. So if we look here, the original array looks like this: black, white, red, blue, and yellow are the colors. But let's say we want to add to that, and we want to add a new color to our data store. In this case, if I switch over here, we see at the end we have an additional color, green. How will we do that? Right now, there isn't an easy or a one-click button where you can come over to data and just say, append, but we do have methods available to support this operation. Now, in this case, the data store has been written. It has the 5 original colors, but I would like to add an additional. So what I'm going to do is perform 2 transforms to be able to add the new color to the data store. The first transform is basically a trim right, where I'm taking in the original data store value and I'm removing the last 2 characters. This number may change depending on the format of your JSON. If you have an array, it may be 2 characters. If you don't have an array, it may be a single character. You will need to kind of check to validate that. Now, why am I removing these characters? I'm taking the characters off the end of the JSON so that I can append or concatenate new string to add the additional portion of my array. So if I come back to Visual Studio, the 2 characters that I am removing are the end bracket and the last square bracket. Once these are removed, I can basically add another section, which is just going to be the text that I have highlighted, starting with the comma, the new section of the array, and I will also add the end brackets back. So once I've removed the last 2 portions of my string, I can come to my next transform, which is just a concat, and that's going to concatenate the original transform value found here and add the new portion of my JSON array, okay? Now when I run this, basically you'll see that this runs, and we're going to take this original data store that has 5 objects in the array, and it should end up with a new data store that has 6 objects in the array. If I come over and look at my previous run examples, you'll notice my original updated data store contains 5 objects, the last one being that yellow color. Now, if I look at the end, or the trimming the end of the string, you'll see that the string originally had the square bracket and normal bracket. The new string ends at the last color delimiter. The next piece of the transform is adding to that string. So we're going to go ahead and add that here. And you'll notice that we're back to having the end delimiters. And we're also back to the point where we have a new color, which is green. The last step of this process is updating or writing this back to the data store. And if I expand this object, you'll see that there are now 6 objects in that array. The last one being that color green. If I look at the one prior to this, you'll notice that it is that color yellow. So we've successfully taken in our data store, trimmed the end off of the string, added a new piece or portion to my data store, and rewritten it back to that data store placeholder. Now that's an example kind of broken out. I do want to point out that you can do this in a single step. So instead of having 2 transforms, if we go over to my flows tile here, I have a shorter example. So I'll go ahead and load this new flow. And what I've done here is I put both into the same exact function. So in this case, you'll notice that it starts out with a concat. So I'm going to concatenate the portion that has the trim done on it with the portion I would like to add. If you haven't done this before, I'll quickly kind of show you how you would build this out. So in order to do this, let's first just add in a new utility. So a new condition. We'll add a new transform here. And the first thing we're going to want to do is put the outer function in place. So in this case, the outer function would be the function we do second, or that concatenate. So I'll go ahead here and I'll just search for concat. I'll go ahead and add that. Now, we know that the bottom portion of text is going to be basically the end or the new portion of that JSON. So if I come over here, I'll go in and I'll just select this piece here, which is going to be the stuff that says, hey, this is the color green, category hue, type secondary, etc. I'll go ahead and paste that in right there. Now, the portion here is where we need to have an additional formula. By default, you can't just change this drop down and you can only enter text. However, if I hit the slider bar here, this is going to be a tip and trick to let you add or use other formulas in a nested fashion. So if I hit text here, this drop down now becomes available, and I can now search for my inner function, which is going to be the trim. And in this case, I'm going to be doing trim and right, which is removing the trailing characters. In this case, I want to remove 2 characters. So I'll select remove our trim and right. I'll put 2 in the trim data section. And for the text here, I'm going to select the value from my original data store. Now that we have this in place, we can update this name and basically say, hey, we're going to concatenate new data with trimmed original data, right? Just to give us an idea of what this is doing. So once we have this in place and we hover over the transform, you can see kind of the nested functions. So basically, we're first going to perform the trim of the data store value and subtract 2 characters. We are then going to concatenate that with the new portion that we would like to add on. If I save this and run this, in this case, I'm actually doing the same thing twice just for the purpose of this demonstration. But if I now take a look, we'll see we have our original data store. Again, 5 objects in the array. We have this new transform that I just created, and you can see that it ended previously. Actually, this one already had the color green. Nope. This one ended successfully where the color green is the last part of that array. Similarly, this is the one that I already had saved. We did the exact same thing here. But the whole key point is we can take that down to just a single transform to perform both options. If I look at the updated data store, again, you'll notice that there are now 5 objects, green being the last one. Compared to the original data store, there are 5 objects with yellow being the last one. Hope you find this helpful. This is an easy way to add or append data to a data store. So if you were doing a loop, for example, where you're looping through something and you want to continually add to a data store when you hit a specific indicator, you can do it this way. Any questions, comments, please send them my way. I hope this helps.